My body is ready. All right. Hi, chat. My name is Ptony, and this is a presentation about moving to Linux. Is it better? Good question. Overall, I will say that I have enjoyed my time on Linux. I don't think it's been a walk through the park. There have been pain points along the way, and I wanted to share it with you and make a VOD to put on YouTube for people that, hi, everyone say hi, YouTube. Everyone say hello. All right, sweet. So for whatever it's worth. Oh, wait, hold on. Oh, that's part of why I'm confused. I was like, this is not accurate. When I started this presentation, this was true. I was working on a Lenovo Legion laptop. There's the CPU, the GPU, had 16 gigs of memory. It had, what is that? A terabyte of hard drive. Hi, Ryzen. However, right now I am on my desktop, which is an HP Omen. I had no idea Intel even made i6 processors. Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand computer parts really. So, but people will understand. I don't know what kind of CPU I have on my desktop, but I do know that I have a 2070 Super on my desktop. I believe that my CPU is less powerful on my desktop than on my laptop. But I have 32 gigs of memory, and on my desktop I have two hard drives. The primary hard drive is 256 gigabytes, and the secondary one is a terabyte. That's the hardware that I'm working with. And when I talk about my experiences, especially this bit right here, the NVIDIA thing might be relevant. Maybe. Who knows? Maybe. That'll come up. All right. So the first thing that you have to do whenever you do subtle foreshadowing, 100%. Whenever you jump into Linux, you got to choose a distro. I started with Pop! OS. I saw that Pop! OS already has integration with NVIDIA. Pop! OS does seem like a really interesting distro. However, I had a rough experience with it. They're in a bit of an experimental state. Pop has a reputation for being more on the cutting edge of Linux, which is cool. If you're into like, I want to get the new features. They're pushing the Cosmic desktop environment, which is very slick. I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. However, I found myself running into problems very quickly. And so eventually I fell back to the distro that is known to be very, very stable, and that is Linux Mint. And for the most part, that has been a good experience. Still have pain points there, though. So I highly recommend, like, if you're looking into choosing a distro, I don't recommend Pop! OS right now. From what I've gathered, like, as I spent more time in the Linux community, that seems to be a pretty common opinion, is don't jump to Pop unless you want to be troubleshooting bugs and just really want to be part of the bleeding edge experimentation, which is fun in its own right, but not for your like workhorse computer. If you install NeoFetch, it will tell you your system specs when you type NeoFetch into the terminal. It's a classic Linux flex. Oh, well, I'm not that enculturated yet. Or FastFetch. I did see a video today where someone was like, he was talking about Linux and he started with FastFetch. And he said, if I don't start with FastFetch, the comments are going to yell at me. I understand that better now. Great. Well, guys, I'm not that deep into Linux. I don't even have a neckbeard yet. Okay. The first hurdle, one of the very first hurdles that I had to cross, I more or less set up the table of contents of this presentation in terms of what I thought might be relevant to people within my corner of the internet. This is definitely very niche to perhaps my corner of the internet. But in today's world, I believe it's fairly common for especially men to want some sort of accountability software to help keep themselves safe. I used to use Covenant Eyes, which is a great software, highly recommended. However, Covenant Eyes is not supported on Linux, so that wasn't an option anymore. And if I didn't find a replacement, then that would just mean no Linux, period. However, I did find a replacement. It's called Truple. It's spelled just, I frequently will type out tuple instead of Truple. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but I'm so used to tuple, like in the programming world. Typing out Truple always breaks my brain a little bit inside. But anyways, Truple is great. Highly recommend it. They support both the X11 rendering environment, and also they have beta support for the Wayland drawing environment. I did have some issues with that beta, specifically when I was on my laptop. Opening and closing my laptop would sometimes interrupt Truple as Truple was trying to do a screen grab, and that would trigger a tamper alert. And so I was like in constant communication with my accountability buddy, telling him, "No, hold on, I'm trying to figure out how we can root cause these tamper alerts," because tamper alerts. I mean, they were false positives, but also you don't want a bunch of false positives going out. Specifically, if I remember right, it's been a little bit. Specifically, I found that when I was opening and closing my laptop while it was connected to a second monitor, no. Before that, I don't know. It had hiccups when it was transitioning from putting itself automatically into its suspend state. So I spent a lot of time in customer support, and we were able to find some solutions that made the process go away. Also, like if I manually put my computer into a suspend sleep state, then it wouldn't have that issue, which is good in the sense that that meant that I was like deliberately closing out of my programs and signing out of my computer when I wanted to stop working on my computer. So, good, healthy practices anyways. But I imagine that they'll continue to work on their software. They were great in customer support and very interested in learning more about what exactly my issues were. And it was fun. I honestly enjoyed being able to like give them data on where Truple was tripping on my system. Suspend state is wonky in general on Mint, sadly. Interesting. I'm trying to remember if I had the same experience when I was on Pop, now that you mentioned that. Because I would have had to do, because Pop is also, at least Cosmic that would have entirely, this was not a Mint problem, because once I was on Mint, I haven't done any Wayland on Mint. That was entirely on Pop. So that one's not on Mint. Suspend and sleep were always a problem with my main desktop. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm sure that they'll continue working on it, but I'm no longer in the Wayland environment and haven't had a problem since. So that's cool. And actually, I mean, Truple is cheaper than Covenant Eyes, so that's kind of cool. It also has more false positives than Covenant Eyes does, but whatever. It's it's better for it to be too alert than it to not be alert enough, in my opinion. All right. So that's accountability software. I recommend Truple if you want to jump into Linux and want accountability software. Up next, do you find Covenant Eyes or accountability software reliable? I do. I mean, not to go too deep into that rabbit hole. Maybe that's a good conversation for afterwards. But yeah, I find that my willpower alone is not enough to hold myself accountable. And so knowing that there is software that is watching what I do and sending screenshots to my accountability buddy, that sure is some really strong constructive social pressure, specifically at the times when my willpower is at its weakest. Does that make sense? So that's why it's so effective for me. Because you need tools that jump in and are effective when you are at your weakest. When we're at our strongest, maybe I don't need help, but we all have our weak moments. So I do find it very, very effective. And especially if you have an accountability buddy that is somebody that you can trust and have a good heart to heart with, and that is not trying to like catch you, but is just trying to help you walk in our walk with the Lord. I mean, like all he's trying to do is keep an eye and have conversations about, like our ongoing struggle. Thank you, Creepy, for the lurk. I found that weaponizing social pressure for good is very effective. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So I don't talk about accountability software very often on stream for various reasons. I don't think it's quite the right space for it. But this is a little glimpse into something that is usually more private. And yeah, would be happy to talk more about this afterwards if chat wants to, because it is a good topic. I don't jump into it very often for a couple reasons, like discretion and things. But yeah, so at least on the Linux side, what I can say is Drupal works great. Covenant Eyes, maybe one day they'll release something on Linux. Until then, you have to find something else. Oh, yeah, like that. Wow. Whoa. Covenant Eyes not on Linux. Drupal is on Linux. And they have weird things about support for Wayland. They're working on it. Up next, streaming software. Go figure. I am a streamer. Many people in my life are streamers. OBS works great. It just works great. I found that, so you can install things as system packages and you can install things as flat packs. They both have advantages and disadvantages. I used to have OBS as a flat pack. But I've switched over to having it as a system package because it is better able to capture, like flat packs are in a more isolated environment. Yeah, that's all. So for a while I was actually defaulting to flat packs, but I have found that the system package is better. I don't know. Figuring out how to get plugins to install properly was a bit weird. On the system distribution as opposed to the Flatpak distribution, I had to like use some terminal magic to actually get the most up-to-date OBS as opposed to an older version of OBS, because the software store, like Linux, is famous for being stable but not always bleeding edge. OBS is one of those things that I need current. I would like to be as current as possible because I do a lot of OBS stuff. So, I mean, that's fine. Figured it out. Exporting and importing scenes for the most part worked fine. There is one exception that I have found. If there's any sources, like on my Windows machine, I just exported my scenes and then sent the files over. And it worked pretty well. There were a couple sources. If you're on Windows, you'll notice like audio application capture, which is still a beta feature on the Windows version of OBS. That's just entirely not a thing over on Linux. Go figure. How they do sound on Linux is one of those things that can be very different very frequently, right? More on that later. So I have found that I highly recommend, if you're going to do that, just delete all those sources before exporting. Because if you don't, you'll import in and it'll be fine, but there will be these source. At least for me, I had these sources that were not recognized. So it had the name of the source, but it was all in red. And when I tried to click on it and delete the source, it would crash OBS. So eventually what I did is I went into like I believe they use JSONs, but I went into the JSONs and manually deleted those things from the scene collections. Hi, Elaine. Welcome in. The power of open source. Hi, guys. OBS does stay winning. OBS is really, really good. Do you use a package manager, or are you using the built-in store that some distros come with? Yes. I mean, the store... yeah, here, let me show you. This store, I usually use the GUI. This is the software manager on Mint. Yes, this connects to the APT thing, Mabobber. I don't know. I don't entirely understand. This is definitely great for me in the short term to be able to get what I need without feeling, I don't know, like I have to entirely do Linux terminal magic. But every once in a while, I'll get things through the terminal too. How does app audio capture work on Linux OBS? It doesn't seem to have that, which is a very real limitation. So if you're looking to capture specific applications audio, there are some things that we can talk about a little bit later. We're going to talk about PulseWire in a bit, but it's not as it's not the same. It's just a different philosophy of life. But I have some pretty niche audio needs, so more on that when we get there. But great question. And frequent streamer as I am, I've never thought to use anything other than OBS. There's definitely other options out there. There's Streamlabs desktop broadcast software. I don't recommend it. I don't like that company personally for other reasons. There is Meld, which seems interesting, but I also am on... I don't know. Meld seems to be really cool software, but it's not supported on Linux, so I don't have to worry about it anymore. OBS is the GOAT. I was always frustrated with Ubuntu because its store and apt-get package manager weren't connected, and I found just doing apt-get upgrade and apt-get update so much easier. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, Mint definitely has some quality of life things to make it a little bit more user-friendly for people from other spaces. And that has been helpful for me. I don't know if I'll live forever on Mint, but it's been great. And to my knowledge, you can stay on Mint like forever. Like Dan Martineau in chat uses Mint and loves it and has been on Mint for a long time and understands Linux much better than I do. But yeah, this software manager is great. It gets the job done. There are some applications that I have installed outside of the software manager. We'll see if any of those come up. I think some of them come up. I'm trying to remember. There's a couple app images that I installed, like Lumafly for Hollow Knight, also Social Stream Ninja, which is part of what, if someone puts a message and you see your message show up on screen, there's two pieces of software that's doing that. But one of those is Social Stream Ninja. Both of those I had to install as app images. I use VS Code, which is very not Linux. And I had to like go to Microsoft to get that from them. But yeah. For a while I'd switched to plain Debian, but I went back to Mint. There's a lot less manually tinkering required. Yeah, I do appreciate that. I think they do really, really good. Right now I've been thinking about tiling window managers, and maybe that's the way I go. Oh, speaking of, actually, there you have it. Chatbots. Speaking of streaming, I used to use StreamerBot. Way back in the day, I used Firebot, and Firebot is a great program. Then I switched to StreamerBot specifically because StreamerBot supports not only Twitch chat, but it also supports YouTube chat. It also is like definitely much more built for programmers. Firebot is a little more user-friendly, I'd say. Like you don't have to be a programmer to understand Firebot. StreamerBot, you kind of need to think at least a little bit like a programmer. It's pretty down and dirty, but it's great. It's really, really powerful. The problem is that StreamerBot does not run natively on Linux, and Firebot does. So I have moved back to Firebot. I was very pleasantly surprised. Firebot has very much like had a glow up since I last used it. It was great when I left it, and it is even more polished now. I mean, both these are really good applications. Highly recommend both of them, especially if you're on Linux. StreamerBot could be a good fit for you. This stream is for me. I'm locked in. Hi, Squirrel. It's good to see you. Love Firebot. Yeah, Dio. It's really, really good. There are a couple things that StreamerBot had that I miss. Like there was a third-party thing that I installed from StreamerBot that is a nice like whatchamacallit, wheel spinner. And what I have found on Firebot just isn't as well developed as what I had on StreamerBot. Who knows? Maybe we'll improve that ourselves. But anyways, and also I really miss being able to read YouTube chat with my chatbot. So that's unfortunate. But that's okay. I mean, I don't do a ton of YouTube streams. Game of Favorites, the YouTube stream is kind of tacked on, but it's not very prominent now anyways. One other thing that I did find is called Social Stream Ninja. And that's a really handy way if you want to merge multiple different chats together. If you are in a multi-streaming environment, this is a really great way to bring all your messages together. They also have an ability where if you click on a chat within their display, then that can that can feature a chat, like spotlight a chat in the middle of your screen with a second overlay. It's very, very fun. On that note, it used to be against Twitch TOS to merge your chats together. They changed that, I think, about 3, 4, maybe 6 months ago. So it is allowed now, to my knowledge. Either that or I'm going to be in trouble with Twitch. If it's not allowed, please send me the TOS so I can be updated. But to my knowledge, they changed that recently. You can actually intermerge your chats with each other during your stream now. I use VS Code on my Mac too. It's like the only tool Windows has ever made that I'd recommend to anyone. VS Code is really powerful. I don't like that it's an Electron app. That annoys me. So actually I've been looking at another app called Zed. Maybe we'll be switching to another code editor. But at least for now, yeah, VS Code is really, really good. Merging chats was a welcome change. Yeah, okay, confirmed. Thank you, Dio. Huge. So that's how I merge chats. Fantastic app. And also, this is a really cool thing. During Game of Favorites, I'll send the link to my merged chat to the other people in the call, and then anybody can click on one of the messages to highlight it on my side for my OBS to highlight in the middle of the screen. That's really cool. I love that. There is also VS Codium. Yes, I did a little with VS Codium. I was not as impressed with their version of Pylance. Pylance is proprietary, and they have their own fork based off of Pyrite, I think it was. At any rate, I just was not as impressed with what they had as far as like predicting keywords and things like that. Like VS Code, maybe. I don't know if VS Code does it better, but it certainly does it a way that I'm more familiar with. And so I kind of bounced off Codium. But Codium does look interesting and could go back to it. I was already doing it. I just found a loophole on the TOS. There you go. All right. So that's Chatbot. And that's my current setup now. I used to use StreamerBot. It's really fantastic. Oh, actually, one more thing. StreamerBot is supposedly very good on Linux. It's rated pretty highly as far as applications that run in Wine. Wine is just a compatibility layer that lets you run Windows applications on Linux. It does a whole bunch of conversions and things. However, I use my chatbot to control things in OBS. So like, for example, I can press this and then Firebot sends messages to tell OBS to move me and to move my background and all of that. And then I can press this and it goes back again. That all goes through my chatbot. That with WebSockets. Once you have StreamerBot trying to send and receive a bunch of WebSockets, then that becomes harder. That stresses Linux more because now you have something that's trying to simulate Windows that's trying to talk to other applications that are being run separately. So if you don't use WebSockets with StreamerBot, you very well may have better luck with StreamerBot on Linux if you love StreamerBot, which is a great program. I totally understand if you prefer it. Now, when do we get down the home lab setup and run his own Pi-hole unbound instance blocking all Windows telemetry at the DNS level? I understood about 5 of those words, so I don't know. Gaming. Everyone wants to know about gaming, right? Here are just a few games that I've messed around with. Could also put Hollow Knight in here. Haven't done a ton with gaming. This has definitely been touch and go. Definitely been something where I have to sometimes root cause issues. There's a great resource called, ProtonDB, where you can look and see other people who have had success. Satisfactory is a game that I had some issues with, where the game would crash sometimes. And now, bear in mind, I've been playing on the experimental branch. The experimental, they just released version 1.2 in experimental like a month ago. So how much of that is Linux's fault and how much is that like satisfactory working out kinks? Sometimes it's hard to tell. But like you can look into error logs. Like often, this is about to be controversial, but oftentimes what I end up doing is I track down crash logs and then I feed those crash logs to AI and say, hey, AI, can you help me understand these crash logs? And then AI will give me advice. Yeah. So doing that, I think reveals deeper issues. Like right now, NVIDIA and Linux are not getting along well. Well, maybe specifically Linux Mint. I don't know about other distros. Silence bot. Yeah. So like things that I've done to try to make satisfactory work. Granted, I haven't messed with it for a while, but I downgraded my driver from, at the time I was on NVIDIA driver 580 open, and I downgraded to driver 535. I can show you my driver manager real quick. NVIDIA's in a weird spot where they used to make proprietary drivers for their for Linux, and they don't do that anymore. I'm a little bit confused. Like it's not entirely open source, but they've exposed some things, and now the Linux community is also working on their end a little bit. So that changed, I think, around 550 or so, but 535 has been preserved and continues to be updated as like this legacy old driver that was proprietary and is considered very stable, especially in X11 environments. These 580 open, 595 open, 595 is very new. It just came out. So I could update to that. But these are also being developed with the forethought of Linux is moving towards Wayland. So currently being on X11, like the advantages that you get out of something like 580 open and 595 open are not what they're developing. So I switched back to 535 for a while, and then Scruffy gifted us Pragmata. Thank you, Scruffy. By the way, we're going to play that on stream. 535 is not a new enough driver to support Pragmata, and so now I was into this weird spot of 535 is more stable for some things, but it doesn't work for Pragmata. I could explore something like 550, which is still proprietary, but is not like the stable maintained version. I don't know. Like it's all just a mess. It is even more finicky when you're on a laptop. So being on a desktop is a little better. And it also seems to be exacerbated specifically on Mint. So if you're on NVIDIA and looking at Mint, just know that you might experience pain. Yay! Troubleshooting like that is a great use case for AI. It's very effective at tracking down niche config issues. Yeah, that is what I have found. It's like been able to identify something like, oh, well, since you're on an HP Omen, HP Omens tend to have this specific issue, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, wow, thank you. That's great knowledge. Beat spending 30 minutes combing through support forums and Stack Overflow. Yeah, 100%. Scruffy my goat. Yeah, he's great. I love Pragmata. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Thank you. Yeah, we're still finishing Animal Well. And then that's going to be the next main game that we play. Although we keep getting distracted with Slay the Spire, which, can you blame me? No, you can't. Yeah. Let me think here. Yeah, let me talk next about Animal Well. Animal Well is definitely one of those things where it would crash sometimes. And so I had to track down error logs, and eventually, I forget what the fix was. I think the fix was just adding a flag to make sure that it launches with Vulkan. And that seemed to fix it. So go to ProtonDB. You'll oftentimes find a little advice to run it more stable. More like slay the free time too. Got him. Exactly. So Animal Well tends to be very stable now, but it took time to get there. Slay the Spire 2 is a really weird one. It was acting very stable for a while, And then one day last week, in fact, the last time that I streamed it, we were playing multiplayer and we kept getting disconnected from each other. Now, I don't know if that was also the first time that I tried Slay the Spire 2 multiplayer on my desktop. I've never had problems with it on my laptop. So like, again, going to AI and asking for help. One of the things that it mentioned was that it could be like HP omens have this, well, HP computers in general have this thing where they'll put your Ethernet into energy efficient mode. And sometimes it's a little hyper vigilant. So maybe that is interrupting your connection to the other gamers. I don't know. There's going to be more root causing there. It could also just be that something within the latest patch changed something. Feels weird, but it's possible. I don't know, man. So I don't know. Gaming is getting better, certainly. If you're on Linux, if you have NVIDIA, you'll have more difficulty, probably, is what I gather. And that actually might even be more so the case on Mint, is also what I gather. Things should look better around the time when Linux settles in Wayland, like the entire Linux community kind of goes to Wayland. So, which Mint says should be this Christmas. That'd be crazy. So maybe things will get better by then. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. Yep. I'm trying to remember if I talk about this later or not. There's one other thing that I have experienced. Speaking of NVIDIA not playing well with Mint, sometimes the entire desktop UI will hang for a second or two. And that does seem to be a unique limbo space that NVIDIA and Mint are in right now, which should be resolved eventually, but is a pain point for now. For instance, playing Hollow Knight, I would notice frame drops. Hollow Knight shouldn't have frame drops, right? However, just earlier today, I was messing around. I booted up my computer with i3, which is a tiling Windows manager thingy. And Hollow Knight ran super smooth. It didn't have any of those lags, those drops. So I think I don't know. There's always more tinkering that you have to do on Linux, but there might be something in particular I believe that there is something in particular that is a tension between NVIDIA and Linux Mint that should get resolved eventually, but not right now. NVIDIA support has become a lot better in recent years, luckily. They were historically very hesitant to support Linux, but they're cooperating more now. That's huge. Wayland Smithers, Wieland Yutani. Yes to that and more, I'm sure. Minor correction, I think. NVIDIA does contribute open source kernel modules after the 580 versioned drivers. Yeah, I'm a little confused. Like, it's not exactly open source. Like, NVIDIA is involved with these guys. But I'm a little confused. Like, as I was trying to understand, they did have a specific change in their strategy as far as how they update drivers for Linux. And long term, that should be helpful. I think it's maybe some sort of collaborative effort where they do some things on their side, but Linux does some things on their side. It's all Greek to me. Yeah, it's all Greek to me. Yeah. So, like, it's not exactly open source, but it's not exactly proprietary. It's like this weird middle thing. I don't know. Like, they call it open. I don't know. It's very confusing. It's all I know is things are touch and go for now. That's all I got. But yeah, you probably understand it better than I do, Squirrel. All I can share is what I have heard and have not understood. Great. All right, that's all I got on gaming. All right. Name any word and I tell you how it comes from. De Greeks, that's right. Sound troubles. This was kind of a big one. So the icon at the top, that's the icon for PulseWire. The icon right above me is XPW Graph, which stands for, wait, no, not XPW graph, it's QPW graph. I don't know what the Q stands for, but PW stands for PulseWire again, and it's a graphical way to connect things to manage your PulseWire stuff. When I was on Pop, I couldn't get this to work very well, but I also didn't spend a ton of time with it and eventually just gave up on Pop because I was having this and other issues. And this was like the last straw that moved me over to Linux. I have some unique sound needs, so this probably won't match up with other people's experiences. Although Ryzen, I think, was asking, how do you capture specific applications? Q probably stands for Qt, which I imagine is the library they use to build the desktop app. People who use Qt like to prefix stuff with Q. Just culture, I guess. That makes sense. The fact that you got GOF sound working is genuinely impressive to me. Sound has been Linux's Achilles heel for a long time. Thank you. I did it with the help of AI. And I experienced problems along the way. All right, so let me first explain why my audio needs are a little bit unique. On Game of Favorites, I'm in a video call with people and I'm streaming that video call to chat. Chat can trigger sound effects. And I want the people in call with me to be able to hear it. I want, of course, chat to hear those sound effects. And I want to hear those sound effects. I want to hear the people in the Zoom call. I want the people in the Zoom call to hear me. I want chat to be able to hear me. I want chat to be able to hear the people in the Zoom call. I want to do all of this without echoing. And I also want, when I'm in the welcoming screen, not actually in the show, I want the people in the Zoom call to be able to talk freely without being heard by chat. So that's all a mess. This is the solution. I created a virtual cable and also a virtual mic. So I set the virtual cable. This is actually what my computer is pushing all of its sound to just by default. So you've got Chrome and Chromium. Everything is built in Chrome today, by the way. If you think you're not using Chrome, hey, guess what? You're being deceived. Do you have Discord? That's Chromium. Do you have Firebot? That's Chromium. Do you have VS Code? That's Chromium. Do you have a wife? That's Chromium. Well, hopefully not that. All right, cool. Shout out to Electron. Yeah, everything in the future is Chrome. yeah, it's just like Fortnite. Hi, Dimity Rican. It's good to see you. All right. So anyways, first I pipe everything into virtual cable A, and then I can split virtual cable A to this is my mic, and my audio is plugged into my mic. So this is a speaker right here. So this is how I hear everything that my computer is playing. This is setting it to OBS, specifically on the whatchamacallit scene, the normal scene. I don't know. When I want people to hear sound like music and sound effects, but not hear Zoom, that's what that is. And then I also pipe all of this over to Virtual Mic B. Now, coming together with also coming to Virtual Mic B is my own microphone. This little cable goes up here, and then I can pipe all of that to Zoom. Okay, cool, sweet. And then finally, I can pipe OBS to Zoom. I can pipe my mic to Zoom. I can pipe Zoom to them. I can pipe, I don't know where this is. Somewhere, somehow, this is just within Zoom settings. I tell Zoom that my microphone is called Virtual Mic B and my speaker is called Rode Mic, USB analog stereo. So, I don't know. That's my solution. If you wanted to isolate different applications, you would do something with Pipewire. It can be a little bit finicky though, because if something disappears from Pipewire because it stops sending out audio and then comes back, usually Pipewire is going to try to send things to the defaults, maybe not where you had assigned it. There can be finicky things like that. So I don't know. There's probably workarounds for it. But that is the sort of stuff you need to do in order to do all that. Second word of caution, by the way, when you set up these things, that means that when my computer is processing audio, it's it's sending it here, and then it needs to process it again, and then it sends it here, and it needs to process it again, and then to there. Or even just to get back to me. It's coming from here, sent to cable A, and it's processed, and then it's sent to my earphones, and that's another process. That can create like, I started experiencing like these popping sounds, and what I discovered was that I don't entirely understand. Like, I'm no audio management guy, but basically what I was able to do with the help of AI again was just increase the buffer size so that it's processing audio in larger packages. That introduces the tiniest bit of latency, but it's like, I don't know, a little enough. So I raised the package to 1024, if I remember right. I can walk through that sometime, probably not in this presentation, which is not really noticeable for the human ear. Like, maybe if you're a professional level League of Legends player, then that sort of thing would be noticeable, because we're talking like frames here. And that was enough that made it easier for my computer to process all of its audio, and boom, I was able to keep up without the popping, without the stuttering, without the weirdness, and it all works. And I took notes, and I put it all in my Obsidian thing, my Obsidian notes, so that when I moved to, like, I had the problems on my laptop first, and I knew that I was going to need to do all this again, so I took notes so that I can do it again on my desktop. And honestly, when I went onto my desktop, I just went through those notes, and I had set up first do this, then do this, then do this, copy this into your terminal, then this into your terminal, and boom, it was done. It was great. So once you have it figured out, it was great. But there you go. Definitely had some pain points. Figured it out though. It worked. When I got back on Linux in 2025, having not been on it for 5 years, Piper was not nearly in the state it is now. I trust that this is easier than it used to be. Oh, I trust. Honestly, this wasn't terrible. It wasn't very stable on POP. Like, it kept trying to overwrite my routings on POP for some reason. And that's one of the reasons I left POP. That was like the final straw. Pulse audio was rough to deal with. I believe it. No more popping in your OS. That's, well, yes, and. So there. All right. Up next. Hey, are you a coder? Are you a coder? I'm a coder. I use Python basically for everything because I'm not a real coder, just a fake one. However, I love Python. A couple of things. Again, all of these things are half researched, but good. To my knowledge, Python is also used by Linux on like an operating system level. They're on Python 3.12, which is awkward because, I mean, that means Python is already installed on your operating system, but I don't want to mess with my operating system's install of Python. Does that make sense? Like, I have my own Python script, so I could just use their Python. No, because if I need to like update my Python, since a lot of my scripts have been written with 3.14 in mind, or if I want like to update packages or anything like that, or libraries, whatever you call them, like, I don't want to mess with something that my operating system is also using in order to be an operating system. So like, I got really nervous when I discovered that. The funny snake language, 100%. So what I discovered is this thing called UV, ultraviolet. It's purple. See? Ultraviolet. It's beautiful. And this has been an incredible little thing. I highly recommend just search for ultraviolet. I think it's made by like Astral Tech or something like that. But what ultraviolet can do is it can install different versions of Python, even different versions of libraries, and hold them independently on your computer side by side. And then I create a virtual environment within a specific folder, and UV is in charge of keeping track of what version of Python was used for this, what version of Pandas what version of NumPy, what version of Pygame. Those are the three things I use the most. What version of all these different libraries was used. And that way also it's really, really cool, because if I try to run a Python script on my laptop and then I try to run the same Python script on my desktop, and I just have UV on both of those devices, UV is tracking all of these things in a couple different files. One is called, I think, pyproject.toml, and the other is called uv.lock. Whatever. But it's able to just read those two files that it manages for itself, and then boom, it syncs up all the libraries that you need for that script, the same libraries, the same versions of those libraries, the same version of Python as was used on your other computer, and it recreates it one for one. Python usually has a problem where a script that runs on one computer really well might not work on another computer because of version issues of like all the different libraries that are imported and things like that. So UV is a very helpful solution for all of that, and I have loved it. And it actually installs libraries faster than pip, which is magic. So I don't know. I mean, they do magic. I don't know. It's just magic. Hi, Anitsu-chan. You missed a few things, but this is very episodic, so I'm sure that you'll be able to just pick up with whatever we do next. Where are your sunglasses? These are glare resistant, so I'm sure I'm protected, ? Who knows? But anyways, just highly recommend this. If you work with Python, just do a little Googling, figure out what UV is, and start using it. Trust me, and you'll never go back. Virtual environment apparently is a built-in Python feature. PyCharm, when I had used Python, took care of all of this for me. Yeah, PyCharm also using virtual environments is half the solution. The trouble is you can't like just drag and drop a virtual environment from one computer to another. You have to rebuild it on each computer. So UV is able to do that in a way that maintains parity for all the different versions of everything that's involved. Pip, magic, sounds like a throwback to Wizard 101. That's right. Haven't touched Python since I was messing with Arduino Nanos in college 200 years ago. If you use Python, stop it. Get some help. That's another solution. But that's not my solution. My solution is ultraviolet. But yes, virtual environment, that is definitely, that's technology that UV stands atop of. And definitely good technology that I have been neglecting for a long time. All right. Hidden in this slide is actually the original reason that I switched over to Linux in the first place. Like the final straw that broke the camel's back that moved me over to Linux. However, a little embarrassingly, it was a misdiagnosis. I learned Git. I'm learning Git. I would not say I know Git yet, but I'm working on it. All right. So backing up files, syncing across devices. I usually run Game of Favorites from my desktop, but sometimes when I'm traveling, I need to be able to run Game of Favorites on the road. And also I would like all of my files to be backed up. My solution in the past is to just put everything in my Google Drive. And on Windows, you can install Google Drive, and it syncs things locally, and you can actually run a Python script from inside of it. However, when you do that, and especially if your Python script is reading and writing files rapid fire, then Google Drive has a little bit of a heart attack and is trying to sync all of these files with the cloud. And so it's panicking, and it starts acting up, and it's like, whoa. And it slows your system down pretty dramatically. Well, to some degree, Windows is quite good at like letting your applications have the resources that they need. However, at any rate, one thing that I oftentimes encountered was my computer seemed to be running just fine. Like resources were not tapped, but Game of Favorites was stuttering. Like the UI, which is just an easy little Python script and which used to run smoothly, like all the animations were really jittery. And I was like, what's going on? It must be Windows bloat. It was not Windows bloat. The problem was I was running it out of a Google Drive folder and the syncing thing was causing throttling issues. So it was actually user error. However, that was that was the straw that broke the camel's back. That is ultimately what pushed me to move over to Linux. So I don't know. The reason that I ended up here is not actually a good reason. But I am still happy to be here. Cool. That being said, the way that Google Drive works on Linux is not the same, so I had to find different solutions. I discovered this thing called SyncThing, which is very, very cool, and that helps sync Game of Favorites across workstations. Very powerful. Has the same problem, though, by the way. In order to run a script out of a folder that is being managed by SyncThing, especially if it's going to be doing a lot of read and write operations, which my scripts do currently the way that they're written, they could be optimized, frankly. However, that will give SyncThing a heart attack, and that can cause issues. And like, so 2 weeks ago, I think it was, when Game of Favorites crashed, that's what was happening. However, if you just pause SyncThing while running Game of Favorites or running your script out of the SyncThing folder, it'll be fine. And in fact, you can even automate that in different ways. I'll figure that out eventually. For now, I'm just manually pausing it. So SyncThing is really powerful. Side benefit of SyncThing, you notice this little Obsidian thing? Obsidian is the way that I manage notes these days. Very fun little markdown language based thing. My Obsidian Vault is set up with SyncThing to also sync up with my phone, which means that my Obsidian notes are also on my phone. Very cool, very nice. I can take my Obsidian notes on the go. If I want to reference some notes that I was writing recently, like, I don't know, I was researching theology, dumped a bunch of thoughts into a markdown file, and now I'm digesting it, talking to Yenza. That happens every once in a while. I can just pull up my notes on my phone, which is cool, that sort of thing. I'm chatting a lot. Hold on. What is learning Git good? Yeah, maybe. I swear Google stuff is vibe coded these days. I don't know. Microsoft has talked about using vibe coding, so that's weird. I'm hearing another use case for Peter Home labbing Gittia and WireGuard. Yeah, something. Linux is better though. Short of code, I have been enjoying it. Yeah, I agree. I guess I had never asked why you moved over to Linux. I had assumed it was either a Windows 11 incompatibility or with the trend going, or maybe a dissatisfaction with Microsoft morally. You made the jump. This is a much simpler reason. Yeah. I mean, like, there was a growing tension of two things. Being curious about Linux because I like Linux just sounded interesting and I wanted to try it out. And two, like, just the growing annoyance with Microsoft Windows, which I think many people on Windows relate to. So even though like the straw that broke the camel's back wasn't actually their fault, sorry Windows, sorry Microsoft, there are enough things that I don't regret switching over. It's just kind of funny that that's what pushed me over. A new car! That's right, short of code. I don't know what the conditions are. Mr. Balloons will never answer my questions on that. Cool. So instead of Google Drive, I now primarily use SyncThing to sync my files across devices. However, if you're at all knowledgeable about information systems, if you truly want to back up something, you should back it up between two physical drives, two physical media, and a third place that does not live in the same place. So whether that's like a friend's computer in another state, or whether that's a cloud somewhere, you should have a backup that is not something that could be taken out by like a house fire. So for me, that is a big part of why I'm trying to learn GitHub in my free time, although that has been kind of I do it a little bit, but it's confusing. Going through tutorials and stuff, it's very fun. Things that I haven't solved yet is where do I back up all of the images that I use for Game of Favorites? Because there are a few, certainly assets like emotes and things are pretty small. Could probably just continue to house those on Google Drive, but I wouldn't mind a better solution for all of that. But yeah, that's my new file syncing solutions. I'm not at all knowledgeable about any of this. That's fine. That's fine. This is definitely the first part of the presentation was a little bit more like broad use case. This is getting increasingly niche. I'm just sharing like what are some of the pain points that I personally experienced. Honestly, I haven't de-Googled either, so best of luck should you decide to do so. Thank you. Yeah. Do you want to see something that is extremely cursed on my Linux? This is all in Linux Chrome. But I made this presentation using MARP, which is an open source markdown way of writing slides. So who knows what's going on here. All right, cool, sweet. Up next. Linux under load. This has definitely been a pain point. SyncThing also runs on phones and tablets, which is handy. Makes grabbing photos from my iPhone a lot easier than having to transfer via the cable. Yeah, SyncThing is remarkably good at syncing your devices. Like if you want files that are on one device to go to another device and especially if you want that to happen fairly often, just create a SyncThing folder that is shared between your two devices and boom, that's all you need. Yeah. I have loved it. It's very, very easy way to sync things. Okay. Right now, we're kind of like in wet concrete. I have had weird experiences when Linux is under load, where if I push my computer to do a lot, then the experience is just different, and I'm adjusting. In short, when computer is stressed, what do is what I would say is the question here. So I grew up on Windows. I'm very familiar with how much I can push my Windows computer, and what to expect if I push it too hard, and how to resolve those issues. I'm not going to say that Linux is worse at that. I am going to say that Linux handles it differently, and I'm getting used to it. One thing that, so on Windows, what I'm used to is if something goes wrong, I can just open the task manager and end processes that seem like the culprit. And that kind of works. That works pretty well. Linux is a little different. One of the biggest differences is that Windows prioritizes the UI of their operating system more than Linux does, which is weird. Like that has been the weirdest experience for me, is if I have a program that is suddenly demanding a bunch of resources. So for example, we were talking about giving SyncThing a heart attack and suddenly it has all this work to do. It will demand resources of my Linux computer and Linux will say, sure, here you go. And then other applications suddenly don't have any resources. And even the UI of my operating system doesn't have resources until SyncThing finishes what it's trying to do. That's really weird to me. And I'm getting used to it and wrapping my head around it. It has taught me to be much more careful and deliberate about how often and how many applications I open up, because ultimately Linux is going to be better at managing the resources that my computer does have, but the way that it prioritizes is different. Tops P kill. Yeah, there are solutions. And like the out of memory killer feature. Yeah, I have definitely explored a little bit about that. I don't know a ton. Like I know how you can like switch to another, what's it called? Another TTY? I forget. Like if you press Control Alt F1, things like that. TTY, yeah. Thank you. Dan Martineau taught me about that. Super helpful. And, you can use something like htop to like sort through your processes and terminate a process that you think is problematic and then go back. Even doing that, though, sometimes I find once my computer is in a state where it just died, then it was just dead. Now, keep in mind, like if you remember back at the beginning, the specs that I'm working with is only 16 gigs of RAM. And as I also just mentioned, I run a lot of Electron apps. And, Electron uses a lot of memory. So that's part of the problem, certainly. So Other things that I can also consider and have not had to look into since I've moved over to desktop, like my desktop just has more RAM, and so I haven't had these halting issues that I was experiencing on laptop. There's this concept called niceness, which looked really interesting, where I can tell Linux, hey, when you run this program, it should be nicer, and when you run this program, it should be meaner. What do we mean by nice and mean? I mean, a nice program will let other programs take resources first. A mean program will push other programs out of the way. So I could like reconfigure the niceness on my computer to make it so that what is most important to me, so for example, the UI of my operating system, I wouldn't mind if that's a little bit of a meaner process that pushes other things out of the way. OBS, I wouldn't mind if that's a little bit meaner because I want my stream to not crash, things like that. Whereas SyncThing, frankly, I love you, SyncThing. I would love you to be much nicer. Play nicer with the other children. So that is something that that is available to me, and especially if I go back to, especially on my laptop, might be more necessary. Yeah, sad that 16 gigs is kind of minimum anymore. Yeah, it is crazy, man. It's crazy. And I blame Chrome. I am actively looking for, hey, this is an Electron app. Is there a non-Electron app version? Oftentimes, no. Short for teletype, because Unix originally was controlled through teletype printers. Gotcha. Nice is the way. Nice C10 SyncThing. Nice -N10, I mean. Gotcha. Thank you. Yeah. So it is really fascinating to me. I guess the most fascinating thing to me. Fanfare. The most fascinating thing to me is that that some of these things aren't set to be meaner by default. I believe by default, all applications work at the same niceness level, all processes, even your UI. So I may go in and reconfigure nice things in the future, especially if I have hang issues in the future. Although on my desktop, again, haven't been experiencing that as much, mostly because I have a lot more memory. And over on my laptop, I allocated more of my hard drive to be swap memory. So I have 16 gigs of regular memory, and then I also gave it it's by default you get 2 gigs of swap, which is like hard drive that is kind of backup memory. It's going to be slower because it's your hard drive. It's not ready access memory, so it's going to be slower. But if suddenly your computer needs to store a bunch of things in memory, then swap is available to like put some of the things that seem to not be manipulated as often or accessed as often into this secondary memory space called swap. So just giving my computer more swap space also helps with that sort of thing. Yeah, good. Sweet. So that is the biggest pain point, figuring out things like that. There are solutions. However, it is worth just noting that Linux has a very different philosophy about how they prioritize processes. And depending on how you run your computer and what specs you're running, you may run up against that different philosophy. And I was confused. I was like, I thought Linux was supposed to run better, and yet it seems to crash a whole lot more than when I was on Windows. That's what's going on under the hood. That's something that you're going to need to figure out, something that you're going to need to tweak in order to get your system perfectly configured to do what you want your system to do. It's more manual setup. It's ultimately going to make your computer more capable, but it does mean you have to get under the hood more than you would on Windows, where Windows is just going to be like, well, all these programs want resources right now. We'll make sure the UI is still working and then just choose one or two that can try to work on stuff. Like very different, but at least you still have your UI. So as a user, you're like, well, I'm still in control. That's nice. Misbehaving processes, how it used to be, my hanging desktop UI, and niceness. Is the grass greener? Great question. I have found gaming to be more temperamental. There are fewer apps available. Short of codes, yes. I have escaped Windows bloat, which I love. Configuration is more hands-on. So at least to me, I would say, is the grass greener? Yesn't? I think it depends. Like, I don't, if my wife wanted to switch to Linux, I would totally support her and help her. I wouldn't expect her to do this journey on her own, frankly. I think she has enough niche cases that she would have to work through where on her own, she would have a very frustrating experience. I would hold her hand and walk through and figure out anything she needs to if she wanted to. I think that I really enjoy learning more about my computer. Like, this has forced me to learn more about computers in general and kind of be up on the edge of what I understand about computers. And that's a cool experience. It also means that I have to do more research and work than I used to just run my regular workflows. I think one of the things that I most like about being on Linux, besides just the novelty of being able to say I'm on Linux, I'm going to be on Arch one day, aren't I? With that attitude. Oh no, that's terrifying. But one of the things that I really like is just being one of those players that is a vote that says, hey, developers, take Linux seriously. Maybe you should make applications that also run on Linux. There is no reason, like the biggest thing that is difficult on Linux, I would say, aside from the different philosophy that we just talked about a slide ago, I think that the most difficult thing on Linux is most developers program for Windows first, and then maybe they get to Linux. And that's always just going to be a pain point that Linux users experience unless developers also develop for Linux. So the Linux user base is growing, and I'm kind of honored to be part of that growing user base that says, hey guys, we're over here, we're growing, and you should take us seriously, at least for some developers. And so that makes me quite happy to be here. Yeah, that's my experience. Very fun, very enjoyable. Definitely have had pain points along the way, but I don't think I'm going back. I think I'm happy here. There you go. Let's take one or two questions, and then I'll make a marker to end the VOD for YouTube. It may not be greener, but it's certainly more penguinier. That's right. If your life consists of Fortnite, Valorant, PUBG, Adobe, and writing C# apps, I'd wonder why the switch. If you live in the browser, there isn't a reason to be on Windows. Yeah, there are some specific apps that are going to make it not the right move to Linux. Like especially those ones that you mentioned. But for me, like actually the number one reason I'm happy to be on Linux is the next time someone says, oh, Peter, do you want to play Fortnite? I'll be like, I can't. Fortnite hates me personally because I use Linux. You know, that's good protection. Welcome to Ptony's Tux Talk. Yes, thank you, Tio. This has been a pleasure. Any other last minute questions? And then I'll end. Everyone is, and then we'll say goodbye to YouTube. Great. I think that's it. Everyone say goodbye, YouTube. What did I miss? Oh, nothing. Welcome, Inato. The issues is that developers have to choose which distro desktop environment to develop for on Linux. With Windows and Mac, there's only one platform to support. Linux's fragmentation makes supporting Linux a bit harder. That's true too. That's very true too. Home Lab win? Tomorrow, CalMage. Weren't you listening? Of course it'll happen tomorrow. Bye, YouTube. Thank you, Dio. All right. Everyone say goodbye. Bye. Make a marker. Bye, YouTube. And God bless and ciao.